So for Americans who might not understand the significance of the driving ban being lifted on Saudi women, can you please explain?
Well, it's a huge step because through some historical anomaly, when cars were introduced in the kingdom 70 years ago, nobody thought in those days and conservative times that women would drive. And then it became a habit, and the conservatives and the religious right, if you want, held on to that as a way to prevent women from being fully integrated into society and into the workforce. So it became a very hot-button political issue. And continuous governments over the past 50 years were very reluctant to authorize it because that would inflame the conservatives in the country. And then it really took a bold leadership by the new young crown prince who decided, to take an authoritarian decision and implement it. And even though, the decision was taken 6 months ago and women start to drive yesterday, but the psychological impact of the decision had a huge impact on the integration of women into life and into the workforce. In other words, women have started to be integrated already over the past 9 months in a much more extensive fashion than they were before. So for Saudi Arabia, however strange that may look to people outside, it is a momentous decision in terms of social and cultural reform.
And you mentioned that women took to the streets and driving on Sunday. What have you been hearing from women and their reactions to being able to drive?
They've been ecstatic, really, because it's given them an element of freedom that they never had before. There was a lovely clip yesterday of a Saudi female Uber driver picking up her first customer at the airport, and it went viral. These are huge steps for ultra-conservative society that had refused to recognize that women have to be brought into the workforce. So it's a tremendous step.
Should we consider this a turning point for the kingdom?
Well, it's a cultural turning point. It's a social and cultural turning point. And it's a tremendous step forward for the integration of women into daily life. It had become a wedge issue for the religious right, if you want. And they thought that was the last barrier that they could put in front of women being integrated into the workforce, into daily life, having mobility, having much more freedom. So that has been broken.
And what economic impact do you see coming now that this ban has been lifted?
It will be a material economic impact for a number of reasons. First of all, it's going to increase female participation in the workforce. And that is going to increase consumer demand and consumer spending because women will have more money. On top of that, Saudi Arabia has about 1.5 million foreign drivers. So many of them will be sent home. And that foreign exchange outflow that used to take place from their remittances will be retained in the country now and will also increase the domestic money supply. So it will be a material impact.
And this is part of a series of social reforms called Vision 2030. What other kinds of reforms do you see coming in the years to come? Well,
they started 2 years ago addressing the very high level of subsidies in the local market, which allowed energy prices to be abnormally low, utility prices to be abnormally low, and many other basics to be priced way below international market standards. And that created a lot of waste. So that is being addressed, that is being gradually reduced, and that in itself, as budget deficits are being reduced. So I think that's trying to bring an oil-dependent economy, first of all, to reduce budget deficits, and then prepare yourself to diversify. And part of being able to diversify is bringing in a tremendously important element of the workforce, which are women. And women have been proven to have actually performed very well in schools in Saudi Arabian universities. So by integrating them more fully you're going to help the diversification of the economy away from oil.
How does the generational difference between the women impact how they're responding to being able to drive now?
Well, obviously, it's disproportionately impacting younger women because they're more open to it. They see the world around them. Many of them have traveled abroad or studied abroad. So if you looked at a lot of the videos that came out from the international media on the streets of Saudi Arabia yesterday, the vast majority were younger women. You know, the older women have been set in their ways, and it's a bit more difficult for them to take that step. But younger women are ecstatic, really.
And while Saudi women took to the road on Sunday, the women who have campaigned for years to lift this ban on driving are still in jail. What kind of impact will the ban of driving in Saudi Arabia might mean for those women's freedom?
That was unfortunate, really, that the government arrested them a few weeks ago. They have not disclosed yet what the detailed list of accusations against them were. They seem to have technically broken the law in a number of areas. But I think maybe what was driving it, psychologically what was driving it, is that a feeling by the government that they had to show the conservatives a bit of balance. A few weeks before the driving decision was announced last September, the government went ahead and arrested about 70 hard-right clerics. One of them has 15 million followers on Twitter. So I think they've been fighting a very aggressive religious conservative right for the last 9 months. And as part of the political balance, they had to show that they were also not allowing the liberal left to take too many political freedoms in this very sensitive environment. They're trying to hold the ship together in a very delicate period. Social and cultural change is always extremely risky for a society, and it's very stressful. And I think the government is grappling with holding the ship together and balancing its different political constituencies. It's going to make some right decisions. It's going to make some wrong decisions. And that's just a fact of life, really.